Hello, Galaxy. This is your Supreme Leader, Kylo Ren, and you are listening to Girls with Sabers.
Since we laid that foundational work of the misreading of Luke and the general idea of why people hated Luke, a debate on some of the things that a mentor is supposed to do, and did Luke fulfill his role as being a mentor to Rey? One thing that a mentor does is he convinces the hero to accept the hero's powers or skills. Does Luke convince Rey to accept her power and skills as a Force user?
Convince her actively? No, but I think Luke's role is always made better by being around others. I think him in isolation doesn't work well. If he's the one in charge completely, if no one challenges Luke, I think that is something that could be read into his flashbacks with Ben Solo. When he is the legend, when he's the one that's entrusted with everything and to make the hard decisions, he himself doesn't have the greatest confidence in doing it, and he maybe doesn't do it the right way. Comparing that to when he does take advice, when he allows himself to be kind of mentored and things in the OT, he works a little bit better. When Rey turns up, I think she does more to convince him. I think they have this kind of almost reversal of roles at some point. She goes for mentoring. He doesn't give that to her, but it's her brightness, her will, in a way, reflects back at him, even though reflecting the other is what Luke traditionally has done. He reflected himself back to Vader and showed Vader that Anakin was still inside him. He reflected himself back onto Rey and showed Rey that she didn't need him. Yeah. Rey's entire story is that she discovers these things kind of by herself in some respects. She still needs signposts along the way, but Luke is always a reflector. So I don't necessarily think that he convinces her actively. It's very passive. Very passive. He allows others to make their own decisions.
Okay. Yeah, I get with that.
Luthien, what do you have to say? Do you have any?
I agree, especially when he was on Crate, and we did that video essay a couple months ago. Did Rey lift those rocks by herself? And I think in that moment when she stood there and said, comes back to lifting rocks, in that moment he convinced her, because he was there with her. In the novel, it even states that he looks into the Force and he sees her there. And in not so many words, you get the sense that he was helping her do that. Helping her in the Force, convincing her that she can do this. Not only can she lift these rocks, but she can lift the boulders that are inhibiting his nephew to come out of the shell of Kylo Ren. So it's very metaphorical. But in that moment, literally, I think he convinces her that she can do this. That she's strong enough.
He says that through the Force, that he will always be there for her. And she knew that, and she understood it. Something that is a characteristic of the fallen mentor is that they show the hero what they're not supposed to do. That Matt said is that Luke showed Rey what not to do in becoming a Jedi. And you see that in the novel. You see when Kylo is passed out on that throne room, she decides that she will never be like Luke. She will never kill someone or think about killing Kylo. She will let the Force do as the Force wills it. That Kylo is still alive, and it's because he is meant to be alive, that the Force has a purpose and a will for him.
Question.
Another.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
No, that's
just
okay.
on the whether you want to edit this back into the lifting rocks bit, but a question is that keeps coming up. Do you think that Luke's mentorship is almost a little more like Yoda than it is Obi-Wan in some respects? Like with the parallel to the lifting rocks and lifting the X-Wing, which has come up again in discourse lately. I don't know what has prompted that online. People are talking about it for some reason. The concept of failure being so littered through The Last Jedi that Yoda does show up. I kind of feel like Luke's arc into exile is a little more akin to Yoda's. Yoda's, and something I think Sean was mentioning to me offline, was that there's a reluctance in Luke, which there's also the reluctance in Yoda, where Obi-Wan just wants to get back to it.
Ooh, that is really good, because in our monomyth of Rey's video, we talked about how Han is basically the wizard that tells Rey that all of this is true. The Jedi, the Sith, the Force, all of it is true. And he, like Obi-Wan, dies on Starkiller Base. Well, Rey actually meets up with Luke in the second movie, so that is really interesting.
I've always felt that Yoda was more of a master to Luke than Obi-Wan was. Like you said, Obi-Wan was the provider of the pill, so to speak. This is your quest now. This is what's going on. Providing that bit of knowledge to spur the hero on the adventure, and then they fall away. But then there's that other sensei that comes along and really is able to provide better wisdom and guidance. But that doesn't mean that they're without flaws. Like no teacher has all the answers, and life is about constant learning. But yeah, I always thought Yoda was more of the Jedi Master to Luke.
I think that is a big criticism of Last Jedi by idiots. That they wanted
that's the tech term.
Wanted Luke to be they wanted Luke to be that Yoda character. So he might be a bit reluctant at first, but he would then be like, "Oh no, you're right. Okay, let's do flips and all this stuff." And because Yoda's protests are very weak. He's like, he's too old and he's this, and then Obi-Wan's like, "Come on," and Yoda's like, "All right, fine, we'll do it." It's a very small rejection, whereas obviously Luke rejects it for the entire time. I think the thing I sort of found like watching A New Hope recently was how interesting it is. Like as soon as Obi-Wan gets a sniff that he can get back into adventure, he's all over it. You know, he's literally just like, right, cool, let's go. I'll train you to be a Jedi. Let's get out of here. I got some unfinished business. I've been sitting on this rock for 30 years. I am ready to go. Yes. You know, and he is straight away back into it. Because I think the thing is, like, he was a Jedi and then he wasn't. Like, he kind of has that FOMO almost of, like, his work wasn't finished. Whereas, like, if you compare that with Luke, he considers himself to have, like, you know, the war is over, he's tried to be a Jedi and that's failed, and he considers that the end. Whereas Obi-Wan's sort of like, no, I've failed, but I'm still alive, so I need to just keep, you know, there's still work to be done. And I think that's kind of a really, that's what stuck out to me when you said this is what we're going to talk about. That's what stuck out, like that idea of Luke sort of deciding that it's over and Obi-Wan being like, nope, Obi-Wan is back, baby. Back.
I think it's easy to forget, too, that Luke is meant to... Well, first of all, we have another film to go. So maybe his teaching is not done. Same with Leia.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say the four of us agree that there's going to be some form of training going on with Leia and Rey, and Force Ghost Luke may be involved. Just maybe.
It looks like that, doesn't it? On
It
the new
does.
footage, like when Rey's throwing the lightsaber. I think there is like a targeting droid or something in the trees or whatever. Yeah. And that'd be cool.
But these are the people who are meant to guide her, but not train her or teach her. We have not gotten a film where we've had the type of bond that we've seen between Rey and Kylo. In the first film, The Force Awakens, Kylo says, you need a teacher. Who's going to teach you? He's much more strong than anyone gives him credit for. And not only is he strong in the Force, Luke has not seen anything like this before. He could possibly in different ways be even stronger than his grandfather. Yet he is read up. Dude's got the knowledge, as in he's read all of the Jedi texts and then some, and transcribed even things that have not been read in a millennia. So where is Rey going to get the rest of this knowledge, if not for Ben Solo? So her learning is not her learning is not complete. Neither is his. He's got a lot of learning to do too, but her training will be complete because he will finish that for her. Ben Solo will.
Luke even says that. He
Yes.
says, you need a teacher. I'm not the one to teach you.
So question on that concept then is, we see in the new footage that there is a training droid. That is definitely a training droid that's floating around the trees that Rey is throwing the lightsaber at. We know that Ben has definitely read all of the texts. We know that. We know that Rey's got the texts.
So how do we know that he's read the texts?
Extended universe stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Visual dictionary.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a calligraphy set for transcribing, basically.
Cool.
Yeah. Whether it's a role or responsibility of his, maybe he thinks that he's got to teach her in some way, but I think one of the interesting things we've seen with Rey's character is that she grew up self-sufficient. She's taught herself everything to this point. So, do we think that in the last film she's going to all of a sudden relinquish that role and responsibility and allow herself to be taught, or do we think that it's going to be another one of those self-discovery sort of points for her?
I hope so. I think I would prefer to keep that theme because I like that. I like that about Rey. The fact that she's she's scrappy, self-sufficient, knows how to kick an ass. I'm into that.
I think she's going to come to the end of her rope. I think one of the things that she's going to, I slightly disagree because although I love her self-sufficiency, there's some things that she's going to need to know by a master. I don't think Leia is going to survive very long in The Rise of Skywalker. I think she's going to have to go to Ben Solo. There's got to be a fulfillment of that you need a teacher in the first movie. The second movie is you need a teacher. I'm not the one to teach you. She's going to have to find a teacher in the third movie. And they have been foreshadowing this instruction since the very beginning. I don't think it's going to be like I need you, please teach me. I think it's going to be a conclusion that she comes to her own that, Ben has something to teach me. The Force has been putting us together for a reason and a purpose. And it's not just a thing where she is dependent on him I think there's going to be a two-way teaching. Rey's going to have to teach Ben some spiritual things about forgiveness and hope and restoration and self-reliance on his part. He's going to need to teach her what he has been taught about the ways of the Jedi and the ways of the Sith, and give her the knowledge, the instruction that he has in his mind and being.
I agree. She's going to come to a point where she knows she can't do this by herself. She'll think she can. Oh, I need to go alone. Or, oh, I can do this. And it's going to be a little bit cocky. Luke was very cocky. Not only in the beginning of the original trilogy, but at the end. She's going to be humbled.
Always headstrong.
Yes, very headstrong. She's going to be humbled very much, especially given Sidious's return to the film. Not that he ever truly left, but she's going to be brought down a peg or two. Everyone is. They're going to be up against something that is just going to blow their minds, and they need to work together. That's what the whole sequel trilogy is about. It's working together to defeat the common enemy. But I feel she's going to be humbled very much.
Yeah.
I just had a thought, this concept of Rey needing training. Seeing her with a training droid in the new footage, part of me wonders what purpose it's going to hold. Is it going to be, and sorry if this is a tangent, I wonder, is it going to be specifically, because there has been time in all of this now, between The Force Awakens and the last film, are we going to just see a training sequence? Are we going to just see her doing something with a lightsaber to sort of subdue people who are going, oh, she never trains and she just knows how to use a lightsaber? Is it going to be a throwaway kind of piece of the film almost? Like, I wonder whether it's just going to be a 2-second thing. Like, she's just out in the woods doing her daily training that she always does, and someone comes along and interrupts her, and that's it. Or are they going to make a big
Last Jedi as well? Like, that's the thing. We got that in Last Jedi when she's doing with the stick, and then she gets the lightsaber. That should scratch that itch. If such an itch even exists, and it does not.
Well, heaven forbid she knew what, battle was even before The Force Awakens. I mean, just because she's proficient with a staff doesn't mean she's not proficient in using some type of sword weapon. And
that fight in Force Awakens, when she first kind of strikes at Kylo Ren, it's like she's using a longer thing.
Correct.
Like she jabs it, she lunges, as you would with a stick.
Yes, but heaven forbid she has not picked up any of this stuff from people coming through Jakku and Nema Outpost, and I mean she's been around the block. She knows how to defend herself. Plus, you have this force bond going on. People will call it lazy writing, but she is instinctually now doing the same moves Kylo Ren does. You see that they mirror each other. She's whipping around that saber and striking him in the same manner that he fights in. So call it lazy writing, but this bond, yet it's not lazy when Revan and Bastila do it.
Oh, no. Anything Revan does, no. Okay, so there's this obsession with, and watch this segue. So there's this obsession with Rey and training and kind of having to be given things, that she can't have things of her own accord, or that we can't have a character that is already in possession of skills and whatnot. So coming back to this idea of the mentor. And there's a point that you make in the notes here about the mentor often being the secret keeper of special weapons objects, other gifts that are passed on to the new hero to allow them to take the reins. So here's where the segue is. If we are going to accept then that Rey already has certain levels of powers, weapons, whatever it may be, whether they are personal or physical, whatever it is, what then does the mentor give her? What has she been given to this point?
I think the first lesson, just breathe, calm yourself, because I think that's something that is a flaw in Rey. She's so impulsive, and sometimes she doesn't think through her actions. And we see this even in the Rise of Skywalker training. When she swings that saber, she's gritting her teeth. She's angry. I wonder if that training is not necessarily a skill of twisting or boomeranging that saber around. I think it's Leia trying to get her to calm and reach out to the Force, connect herself to the Force, and not just rely on her physical training, but tap into that spiritual training. Because that's what Luke taught.
There's a lot of cinematic mentors or mythological mentors where it is simply, I guess in terms of Star Wars, Obi-Wan gives Luke, obviously gives him the lightsaber, but he's also, for better or worse, a lot of his role is to just tell Luke things, like the next step, go to Dagobah, Leia's your sister, and so on. Essentially he is a bit of like a plot exposition machine, but that knowledge is sort of vastly important for Luke's journey, which sort of does seg into the thing, again, I think me and Matt were talking about this, in terms of the hypocrisy of the Jedi, in terms of how much Obi-Wan stretches the truth or dishes out knowledge in his own time. Obi-Wan sort of from a certain point of view thing. Because I think the thing is, it's weird that in terms of mentors, I think people would say that Obi-Wan is Luke's. But like you say, he doesn't hugely train him on much stuff, and he's not super good at it, because he's withholding, and I don't know. Sorry, I lost my thread there.
It's okay. I understand what you're saying. Pretty much Obi-Wan says, "Use the Force, Luke." That's it.
Yeah.
Use the Force.
Yeah,
Trust yourself.
That's his instruction.
Yep. That's it.
That's it.
But how? Obi-Wan didn't tell him how to lift rocks, and what Luke. This is going to be easy. It's like shooting womp rats. Use the Force, Luke.
Use the Force, Luke.
There you go.
He's literally known what the Force is for about 8 hours at this point.
Right, exactly.
The Force is a life force that binds and unites us.
Yeah.
And then it's but how do I use that for warfare?
Exactly. Exactly.
You close your eyes.
Close your eyes and just press that button. The Force will do the rest.
Done. That's it. I've got Force now.
I've got, it's not the Force, I just got Force. Got Force.
Yeah. Got Force.
Got that Force.
New t-shirt.
New t-shirt.
There.
Got Force.
Got Force.
No one take that. So getting to that, though, Obi-Wan and not being the world's best sensei, he's smug. He had his own flaws. You think about what would have happened if he told Luke that Vader was his father from the very beginning, and just said, because all he said was Vader killed your father. So that's a little bit manipulative. That's withholding the truth, just like Luke withheld the truth from Rey. But then again, that was a point of perspective. But there's certainly arguments around that. And did he do the right thing of not telling her until she practically beat it out of him? But was Obi-Wan manipulative? Probably not with malicious intent, but you could make the argument that he was manipulative.
I feel like he's playing a long game. I feel like Obi-Wan knows everything. Well, he does know everything because we know everything. But he is sort of right, I need to train this kid to kind of restart the Jedi. But if I tell him that Darth Vader's his father, he might run off and try and confront him. It might scare the bejesus out of him, and it might somehow, like, I don't know, maybe Luke knowing would be like a dog whistle to Darth Vader, and he would know that he knew or something. And I think Obi-Wan's not expecting Darth Vader to know that Luke's his son, because in the comic books or whatever, Boba Fett's the one who finds out and tells Darth Vader and all that. So as far as Obi-Wan's concerned, and again, that sort of smugness, he's like, no, I've got this on lock. I gave him the same surname, not a problem. But I've put him in the play, all that sort of plot holey stuff that people talk about with, like, why would you hide Luke with relatives? But I mean, I think maybe that's the Obi-Wan's game is like, well, Vader doesn't know, so he's never going to tell him, and maybe I can tell Luke down the line, but I need to make sure he's ready to know, and then obviously Obi-Wan gets killed before he can do it. But I don't know, it's a weird one, because from what we know of Obi-Wan Kenobi, he is quite a flawed master. Like, obviously, his only student became, a genocidal monster. If he just settled down and married Satine, none of this would happen. But,
Amen.
Yes.
We don't get to make those choices.
What I love is the parallel of sins of the father, sins of the mentor.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. And you think about all the trauma that everyone has been through, the war, the love and the loss that everyone has experienced. And this isn't just hitting the Skywalkers. This is hitting the Skywalkers' mentors. And it's manipulative, but they're making a choice to actively choose to admit the truth. And that has consequences, no matter if they're the Grand Master Jedi. And their world, just like everyone else's world in this galaxy, is falling apart around them. They have been raised in this ideology of the Jedi and what the Jedi is, and they think they know what they're doing. They think what they're doing is the right way, and then it ends up not truly being the right way. And that has lasting effects on a teacher.
There's the shame of failure with every mentor.
Yes.
Every single one of them. Like, Obi-Wan failed with Anakin. Yoda failed the entire order. So I would argue that his failure and shame is greater in some respects, because he sort of feels like he owns, I guess, Obi-Wan's failure as well. Whichever Jedi is left, he owns that and takes that on his own shoulders. And Luke's a product of both of them. So you see both aspects or both kinds of failure in Luke. And he's dealing with both of those things in The Last Jedi. I think he feels the same type of failure with Ben Solo. That's the flashbacks. And then the greater more galaxy-wide failure of allowing something big to sort of happen under his own nose. Very much what Yoda's failure is, and it ends up being Yoda that has to kind of snap him out of that. So you see, and I think even then there's character growth in Yoda. Like, Yoda's been dead. Yoda's had time, but he hasn't quite grasped that in the original trilogy either. Like, he's still omitting information from Luke. Both Obi-Wan and Yoda both lie to him, to seek their own ends, and they that's manipulative of both of them. And it's not until The Last Jedi that even Yoda's got past that Yoda is not afraid of failing, as opposed to him actively advising Luke against failure. Don't go meet Vader in Empire. You'll fail. Don't go and meet the Emperor by yourself, on the Death Star. It's a trap. You'll fail, kind of thing. Like he actively doesn't want him to do it. And then, he's had, I guess, time to think about that. He's like, oh, well, actually, failure didn't go so badly in these other fights, these other battles. So maybe failure is okay. Hey, I know what's good. I'm going to come out and say failure is a great teacher. Look at me. I feel better.
Well, interesting in terms of like non-Jedi mentors. Like if you look at Rey and her relationship with Han, where he kind of moves into that father figure role. And I'd have to rewatch Force Awakens to prove this, but I don't think he lies to her at any point. I don't think he manipulates her in any way. He basically, they ask him questions and he answers them.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of he's the first one to sort of say, no, Luke made mistakes and he blames himself for them, and that's it. And I guess the only thing is he doesn't outright come out and say, oh yeah, no, Kylo Ren's my son. But it's not hidden. You know, it's not sort of like something that's it's a bit of a shame that he sort of keeps to himself. But there's not a sense of the Jedi, especially in the original trilogy, like Obi-Wan and Yoda are moving Luke around like he's a game piece. Like they want him in a certain position at a certain point. Whereas, you know, Han Solo doesn't have that sort of manipulation for Rey. He's just like, yeah, she reminds me of me, you know, instantly wants her on the crew, you know, just is totally cool and instantly assumes that father figure role better than Luke does. You know, when she kind of goes there and obviously Ben Solo and Kylo Ren do point that out to her, just like, you know, looking for father figures. But yeah, it's interesting because I think when you were saying before, like kind of Han Solo and Obi-Wan fulfilling the same role in the first film of the trilogy, and it's so vastly different how Obi-Wan is basically, when you look back at everything he said, it's pretty much all lies or truth omissions.
Han Solo did tell a lie in The Force Awakens.
Oh, okay.
And that lie is he never made a deal with Contra Club.
Oh,
dude made a deal with Contra Club.
And yeah, that's
yeah.
True.
I just wanted to. I felt like it was an elephant in the room, and I just needed to, you know, get it out.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Forget it. Han Solo, he deserved to die.
Yep.
You're right.
And Chewie outs him.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. Let me go back. Chewie is the father figure that she gets in Force Awakens,
Done.
and he never
Done
dies.
deal.
Okay. Edit that. So I'm just going to say Chewie. Take that. Put it every time I mention Han Solo, including the bit where I say that Han Solo is Kylo Ren's father.
Yeah. Yes.
So, even when dead, to wrap this all up, even when dead, a mentor may come back to haunt and annoy, judge, and inspire the hero in times of need. How and what capacity will we see Luke in The Rise of Skywalker, and how will he help Rey? And will he help Ben as well?
As a spooky ghost.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a ghost, but it would be interesting to see him, like, because obviously you assume he's just going to appear and he's going to kind of guide Rey. But there's a line in Last Jedi, doesn't he say? Isn't the last thing he says to Kylo Ren, "See you around, kid," or something like that?
Yes.
Yep.
So that would be
sure
pretty cool
does.
to have him appear to Kylo Ren in the sort of way that Obi-Wan would appear to Luke and stuff like that. I think that would be a nice. Now, obviously, we don't, as fans have told us, no one likes their expectations subverted. Like, obviously, when we watch movies, I want to know exactly what I'm going to see scene to scene and never be surprised. But that would be a cool surprise, I think. Him sort of offering, and I think that thing as well, like as you said there, not necessarily to offer him guidance, but maybe to, I'm sorry, did you say trick or annoy at the start of the quote you said, or something like that, like to a mentor's role or returning role, a dead mentor's role, sorry.
Even when dead, a mentor will come back to haunt, to annoy, or judge, or inspire the hero in time of need.
I would like to see all four of those things happen to Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
I will take all of those. I think that would be a cool way. I think that would be almost comedic in the sense of like he's like Ben Solo is haunted now literally by Luke. Like literally a ghost of Luke appearing and just kind of winding him up and moving him in the right direction, if it's done well. And then also as well to have him kind of come back and sort of give Rey a bit of the training that she initially went to him to get in the first place. Like now that he's sort of matured a bit and knows what's what.
Well,
because he's
If that happens, and I really, really do want that to happen, think about the visual language of all of the previous films that have had Force ghosts in them. I think it's taught the audience that a Force ghost is a light side thing. And obviously,
I mean, yeah,
it's confirmed in things like the comics and other bits of canon. But if we just strip that away and just look at the films, you don't see Force ghosts with baddies. So if that were to happen, if See You Around Kid gets fulfilled and Luke shows up to annoy or taunt, whatever his role is, I mean, it could be that you see him and literally show up to annoy and taunt Kylo, but by doing that, you are also further confirming that there is light in Ben. I think from a visual language perspective, that will pay that off.
No, I think that'd be cool. I think that, like you say, it's a good visual idea that he's moving back towards the light. Again, to go by your sort of idea of that visual language, maybe the more light that seeps in, the more he'd see Luke.
Guys, thank you so much for being on the show with us. This was an amazing talk. Again, this was Matt and Sean from Blue Bantha Milk Co. And let us know where people can find you guys if they're not already subscribed to you.
Cool. So YouTube is the main place. If you just search Blue Bantha Milk Co., so CO at the end, you will find us fairly easily. Otherwise, you can get us on Twitter. It's at Blue Bantha Milk. Sean, what's your Twitter handle? I don't really have one.
God, what is mine? It's like, it's for my podcast. It was like from first to last or first to last pod or
at first to last pod. And follow.
I was gonna say it is first to last pod, but if you don't want anyone to follow you, that's fine.
Yeah, you know what? Just no, come find me. I make really dumb stuff, and it's good.
So we're heavily scripted. So anything that anyone hears that they agreed with, that was me. Follow at Blue Bantha Milk. Anything that angered them, follow Sean.
Send your complaints to me.
Yeah, he loves reading.
No,
but no. Thank you both. Seriously, thank you both for having us on. It's always a riot whenever we get on a live stream or any kind of recording with you. With the two of you, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. We want to do more of this with you because it's a lot of fun for us as well. So thank you for coming and joining us.
Anytime.
Yep, anytime.
Hello, this is Emrys, and with Luthien, thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and click on that little bell icon that will give you notifications every time we post a new one. And of course, like, comment, and do all those things. Peace, love, and Reylo, guys.
All magic comes with a prize.
Peace, love, and Reylo. That's right, Reylo. I am a Reylo shipper, if you couldn't tell already. I'm kind of emotionally invested in that.